Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Nudawn, a Final Fantasy XI podcast with special guest Rooks from the Final Fantasy XI auction house website. Tonight we're also announcing a partnership with JC Custom Designs on Etsy. JC Custom Designs makes 3D printed Final Fantasy XI weapons, and if you use the code Nudawn, all caps, at checkout, it will take 10% off of your entire purchase. Lastly, if you're on YouTube, we ask you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and make sure you put a comment below. If you're on Apple Podcast or Spotify, give us a review, follow, and we look forward to reading those in the future. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to episode 9 of Nudawn, a Final Fantasy XI podcast, where tonight we once again have another guest. But before I introduce this gentleman, we also have the dashingly good-looking, beer-chugging Vobberbon with us. Hey, Bob.
How you doing tonight, bud?
And the ASMR voice himself, Mr. Rua, with his new computer setup.
Hey.
All right, and our special guest tonight is one would call maybe the glue of the Final Fantasy Online community, keeping us all in check, keeping the trolls at bay, and making sure we've got a good experience. And Rooks, how you doing?
I'm only glue in the sense that I used to be a horse. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. Actually, like I was sitting thinking a minute ago, I was like, I should probably just kick this off by like thanking you actually and your team that work on the forums for not banning me a couple months ago. I inadvertently broke and blatantly broke like literally rule number 2 on the rule section of with my whole Kraken Club scam fiasco where I blasted someone's name from in-game. My shellbuster.
No, you were never in danger of that. That was so obviously a joke. No, like I don't know where the reputation that we're ban happy comes from, because the fact of the matter is we're so lazy. Like, you really if you get banned, you have it coming. Like, you did something that we couldn't ignore, we couldn't look past, we couldn't just give a slap on there. It's like, no, sorry, man, you gotta go. Like,
did you
see
the
get me off my ass?
Do you see the look of like his face change? He's like, "What's he about to say? What did he do that I didn't catch?"
Yeah. What did I forget about? Because I can ban you now. Like, it's not a problem. It's like 2 clicks. We can do it live. It'll be great.
Yeah, he could be gone live. I quickly learned why, though, because it evolved and it ended up being like 85 pages long of just people just going at each other. So in a follow up to that, though, is someone actually sent me one of these 3D printed, and the sticker that came with it.
Oh, wait a minute.
Says Shellbuster.
About that thread. Wait, you were the one responsible for that Kraken Club 85 page fiasco? I actually might ban you now.
Yes, that was me. Listen, I didn't grow up on the forum, so like my forum etiquette isn't great. So I honestly just didn't read the rules. But to be honest, like, I don't know, dude. Anyways.
I mean, you got to forgive him.
I'm here.
From Kentucky. Reading is hard for Kentucky.
Hey, listen, I'm from Indiana, okay? So not much better, but okay, well, let's dive in here. So kind of how we're going to do this tonight, I think we're going to ask Rooks a little bit about his gaming history, kind of how it evolved into getting onto the forums, to moderating, and then move into some more auction house specific stuff, and then bring it back around to Final Fantasy again. So hopefully it'll kind of go smooth here. But so tell us about yourself, Rooks. I mean, where'd you start? I'm pretty sure you started like day 1, just from listening to your other podcast episode. But you tell us.
You're talking about like the history of my life gaming, or like my history with Final Fantasy XI?
Whatever you want to tell us, man. Like, it's 11, but we love learning.
Final Fantasy XI, I like a friend of mine sent me a link to the beta, and I applied and I got in, and that was just kind of, where it started. I was in the PS2 beta, and then because I didn't want to wait the extra 6 months for the release to go to PS2 because it came out on PC first. So I went to PC for release, and I just never looked back. Obviously, I was on Cactuar in the beta because that was the only server, and then in retail, I went Midgard Sormir to Hades to Cerberus to Bismarck to Lakshmi. So
server jumper here.
Yeah,
not for a very long time. I had a big Happy Link shell for a long time, and then when Hades got merged into Cerberus, we went there, and then finally, people just started to leave because it was like 2013 or so, and like population had fallen off. So I went to Bismarck, and that didn't work out. I met some very nice people there. It was a really nice server. Just the group I was with just didn't work. So I'd also had to change my name in the Hades to Cerberus merge, and I kind of wanted it back. So I went to Lakshmi because Rooks was available there. So I went there figuring I would just, go there and, retire and walk off into the sunset. And then I found another link shell, TTOF, the worst people on the internet, and I love them very much. And ended up playing again and getting active on the AH forums and, eventually going to moderator and then administrator. So if you want someone to blame, you can blame TTOF. They are responsible for all of this.
Okay. Is there is there a thing behind Rooks? Where'd it come from?
There was a Super Nintendo game way back in the day called Arcana, where Rooks was the name of the main character, and I just really liked the name, and so I stuck with it.
Nice.
Not a chess reference, despite everyone makes that joke 3 times. So anyway,
it's not a what reference?
Chess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do they have chess in Kentucky?
It's a pretty hard game, so we do checkers here. Okay.
See, this was his first time hearing about chess, and so you had to forgive him a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh man, what year was was there an NA PS2 beta?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the beta started on PS2 and then it went to PC.
Okay. Yeah, I heard I was listening to the other episode and talking about like no one could be a bard at first because like they had no some used no crafters to make the quest line.
You couldn't make the vellum, so you couldn't actually complete the class quest. No. And no one could do BCNM 40 either, so you couldn't get Mage's Ballad or Refresh.
So it was the first melee bard.
Yeah, like there was like people who were in beta sometimes rhapsodize about it, but do not believe them.
It was ugly.
Beta was ugly. Like you were killing orcs in Devoy for Gil. And not like the high tier orcs,
scraping, man. It's
like the grapplers. Just
1 gil, 2 gil.
a lot of time in You Got Grotto. So.
What was it, like 2002?
2003.
2003, man. Rua, what were you doing in 2003?
I was already at my 3rd startup. I was old. I'm an old man, so don't. Now I'm.
Rua was a little baby boy.
What was I doing? I think I must have been like just starting high school here in New Zealand. 2003, you say?
Yeah.
I think I was living up in Whangarei, up north at that point. So I was nowhere near here.
So you were already coding then when?
Oh yeah, no, I was like 5-6 years into my career at that point. I was 26. Yeah, I was 26. Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of a natural shoe in. So what were you always interacting with? I actually don't know because like I said, I wasn't involved in the online community. Were the auction house forums there from the beginning too? Or did that come after like Blue? Because there was like Blue Garter then, didn't even go by BG. And then like Killing Ifrit and all these other ones.
Killing Ifrit was the best. I love Killing Ifrit. It was just the worst pit of scum and villainy, and it was great.
That's my line.
Yeah. No, so AH came online in 2007, I want to say. It was like late 06 or 07. I actually don't remember. I wasn't there. I made an account fairly quickly, but I didn't spend a ton of time there. And then, Killing Ifrit died at some point, and then I didn't get onto the AH age staff until like 2015. Like it was already well into Adeline by the time that happened.
What what do you think made the kind of the auction house forums kind of outlast all the others, if you will? Do you think it's just the features of the actual site itself, or?
I don't think it outlasted. I mean, it didn't outlast Blue Garter. Blue Garter's still there.
Yeah, have you been to those forums on Blue Garter lately, though?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it did outlast Killing Ifrit, but that was,
yeah.
I can't remember the name of the guy. I know him. The guy who ran Killing Ifrit. He was a good dude. And it's going to drive me nuts. I can't remember his name. I actually liked him.
He's going to go Google as soon as he's after this. He's going to go find some email from 30 years ago.
I might do it now. But no, I really like Killing Ifrit. I was sad when it went away. But like the subreddit still has like 17,000 members. Like there's plenty of communities. I think AH stayed popular because of the much benighted achievement point system and the guild.
I was going to save you that conversation for later.
There is no saving me from that conversation. I have it 3 times a day. So
I'm surprised that no one brought up the Alakazam forum.
Yeah,
I never went to Alakazam. So
Alakazam was great for starting out, and then after that it died almost immediately, in which every other resource was better by a long shot.
Pretty much.
I'm an OG. I'm a Mystery Tour guy. Like are you actually old enough to remember Mystery Tour?
I don't know. I'm 32.
Oh no, it's a Japanese site. It was great. It was horribly translated. Like trying to find anything was awful, but it was still easier than finding it in the game. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it still amazes me now how people figure stuff out so fast. Like, I guess there's not a great example now, but like back then, the old missions and stuff, like there's like no guidance whatsoever on some of those mission lines. So that's it's impressive. So did you mod on any of the other sites? Did you get into that before the forums?
Nope. I wasn't like I've done moderation type roles on other sites, but nothing 11 related until AH.
So what made you want to take a step forward? And
I actually didn't want to be a moderator. I wanted to help fix the site because Matt was super busy and there was just stuff that needed repaired. So
you didn't want to be a mod? 10,000 messages in your inbox every day whenever you go to the site?
I get way more messages from the admin side than the moderator side. No, actually, the moderator role actually isn't that hard. Most of the forum posting is actually totally fine. The only really toxic part is politics and religion. I think I've sealed that off to the point where most people don't have to deal with it now. But generally speaking, like the regular job threads and stuff, they're fine. Sometimes people get a wild hair up their ass and, I got to go rattle a saber. But generally speaking, the forums are pretty well behaved. I don't really have any issues with that.
Yeah. Who would go into a job forum and deliberately rile people up?
Oh, people do it. Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, Rua likes to rile people up. I mean, literally, he literally makes people angry with his Puppet Masters. And, dude, I was listening. I didn't even realize that I was listening to your episode, too, of the other podcast and death threats.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I remember I was like, what in the world?
Yeah,
I was like, over a Beastmaster?
Okay. Yeah, the story about this, I never pinned it down exactly what it was, but what would actually compel someone to do that is if I was cutting into their bottom line. So I think it usually coincided whenever I put out an ambuscade video and I was showing people how to do it, and like maybe someone was selling it for gil so they could sell gil to fund themselves. Like that's the only way I could conceive of it. I mean, I kind of just brushed it off and dude, you're just some kind of asshole troll off his meds or something, and I'm just gonna you don't know where I am, and if you did,
he's remote.
Yeah, and if you did come over, I could probably take you anyway. So
okay,
whatever.
Oh man,
but yeah,
that's hilarious.
That's about as bad as it got. I've gotten a few messages which weren't really nasty or mean. It's just people will like regale to me a story or two about, oh, you made me come back to the game and this has happened. And like, that's not my fault. are you going on at me for? It's just, yeah.
But it is.
But yeah,
What's
I think that just the sheer amount of toxic, funny rage that I've got was when I did the April Fool's thing. I've literally got those 5 pages I have bookmarked.
You'll have to, Rooks, if you get some time, go watch his last April Fool's video he made on YouTube.
Funny as hell.
It's funny. It's funny.
So the comment section in that is absolutely mint too. Like you just can't get past it.
Nope.
Yeah.
So what's it take to run the site? So what kind of army you guys have on the back end? Like how many mods are there that
there are
on the forums?
Currently 4 moderators, and I think there's actually 5 administrators, but there's really 2 active ones. It's me and Matt Scragg. So the thing is, anything that actually happens on the live site, like in terms of a data load or whatever, that's always Scragg. Like I don't have access to the live site as far as like the backend database. What I do is I write code and I submit patches and changes to him, and then he deploys them. So even though he doesn't show up in the public view a lot, like he's always there. I can always find him. Sometimes he's busy. Usually he's busy. But my role is sort of to fix little things, and usually what happens if there's a recurring problem, I'll actually write. I won't just send. I won't just tell Matt to like, hey, you need to fix it. What I'll do is I'll send him a change that gives me a tool that lets me fix it anytime it's broken on the site. Like it used to be after they introduced item level that I-119 stuff would show up in the database as I-255 because they didn't, handle the POL utilities didn't extract the value correctly. So I had to keep having him fix it, and I finally just wrote something to fix that.
Okay.
And so for a while, every time we would do a data load, I have to go and hit that button so it didn't screw up again. But yeah, it's mostly the 2 of us. Again, we have moderators. A couple of them have been a little busier outside lately, but they're all still around. There's a moderator log that tells me if people are around, and they're around. They do stuff. They're just quieter about it, except for Kojo. He's loud.
So I need one. Yeah, you do need one moderator to be like, yep, public execution. Here you go. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Glad it wasn't me.
Yeah.
So what? I guess on a more basic level, like how does it even work? How come nobody else can do it? Like how does the connection between the site work? Is that like a secret sauce, or is that like something that's openly known?
It's something that anyone with some baseline network knowledge could figure out. It's not that difficult. The big thing about AH is that we've already got it all built. It all just works. Like that code hasn't been touched in forever, which is why some things don't work. But it just works. It's stable. We actually, not when I was there, but previously, Square actually got in touch with the admins and said, hey, what's this? I'm like, oh, we're just doing this. And like, there's kind of an unspoken, unofficial agreement that like, we can keep it up as long as we don't like hammer the site too hard.
Yeah, I always wondered that if there was some type of talks on the back end of like.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so I wasn't privy to that.
Yeah.
But the understanding is that as long as we're not dicks about it, then they just kind of look the other way. But yeah, it's a factor of we already have it and it's already built. We have literally decades of AH transactions recorded and price histories. And at this point, it's the site everyone knows to go to. But there's no reason that you couldn't reverse engineer the protocol and do it yourself. It's really not that complicated.
Interesting. Well, I'm not the smart one to do that. But so what's
Don't look at me.
Yeah. So what's a day in the life for you? Like I know you are limited in terms of the amount of time that you can probably dedicate to it with family and real job and all that stuff. But on the time that you do have, kind of what's your flow like workflow like? How do you organize what you're going to do?
So I have a private Jira server. Jira is a ticket tracking system used by developers. And anytime I see something that needs to be fixed or someone tells me about something that needs to be fixed, I file a Jira ticket against myself. And then when I have free time, which is not nearly as often as I would like with, family and a fairly demanding job and, occasionally needing to just get away from the screen.
Yep.
So I don't get as much of that as I like, but I have a local test server. It's actually right there underneath my desk, runs a full copy of the auction house with, when was the last time I updated the database? I want to say it has a copy of production as of about a month ago. So I can give you any stat you want, like based on a month ago.
Interesting. So I guess, I mean, one question I'd have is, I'm sure he wants to, keep it locked in, but why not have more people who can code?
That is a question for Mr. Scrag. It is very much his baby, even still. Like, I still don't have actual production access. Like, I can't touch the live server.
Right.
It's his baby, and it's every right to be his baby. He's built something incredible. If people asked, maybe. Sorry, what? Do you have a question or?
Nah, sorry, just 1 minute. Be right back.
Okay.
Sure.
If someone asked, like, depending on who it was, I wouldn't necessarily object. But he's very protective, and again, has every right to be. So, I consider it a high honor that I have as much access as I have. Like, I was the first admin he'd promoted in like literally 6 or 7 years. So.
What was that? Was that like, did you like reach out and show interest, or was he like, hey, you've been modding for a while and I know you code?
I was made a moderator in preparation to be an administrator. Like, I actually got code access before I was an admin.
Okay.
I reached out with, hey, can I help you? Because, I can help. And Stan, the guy who created Guildwork, actually vouched for me because I know Stan. And Stan and Scrag are buddies. So
okay.
So he vouched for me, and yeah, so that's how I got in there. So I was brought in as a moderator as, hey, get your feet wet as, being a member of staff. And then I got code access. And then after like a month of that, he promoted me to the full red bar.
What's the largest that the staff's ever been? Is like it always kind of hung around that same amount of moderators, or was it bigger at one point?
It's as big as it's ever been right now.
Interesting.
Generally, the moderator count sticks at like 3 or 4, because when people can't or don't want to do the job anymore, they either lose, like, I either take away the powers completely, or I demote them to VIP, which is the purple bar that you see, which has like a couple of little extra privileges. Like, all the windower people have purple bars, and like Funkworks, the BG Wiki admin, has a purple bar.
Yep.
It gives you some extra moderation tools and threads you create, and you show up in nice, pretty colors.
So, I mean, I guess that's a good question. Do you have like a partnership with kind of the BG and Windower? I feel like those are probably the two closest other teams that would directly interact with the site.
We don't have anything particularly official with the BG Wiki people, other than, we know each other and we're friendly, and, if one of us needs something, we can talk to the other. I like to think I'm on pretty good terms with the Windower people. Like, I have access to the windower.com server because I help them with system administration stuff occasionally. So I hope they trust me.
Yeah. That could go bad.
No, we have a good relationship with the Windower people, and not a super close relationship with the Ashita people, but like, we know each other and we've talked, and
I totally forgot about them.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. No offense, I forgot about them too.
It's a good,
I feel bad.
It's a good utility. It's just as good as Windower in some ways, just different.
Yeah, it's a lot more updated and a lot more questionable add-ons that are built natively into it, though. So I was but it's I used it when I played on the private server for a very brief stint. I played on a private server. I used Ashita, but so what are some things, I guess since you've been in for like 5 years now, you said 2015, what are some things that have been added that you kind of have a direct like hands-on, anything that's that you can say?
Any new features since then are all me. So geez, I'm trying to think now. Like, there was just a lot of under the covers bug fixes. I added a bunch of the new currencies pages that let you see like what you can buy for Sparks and what you can buy for Plasm.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That was within the past couple months. That was nice.
If you go through in the forum, the Ffxi section in the news subsection, I post whenever I make changes, because what happens is I send the changes to Matt in a batch and he deploys them all at once. So you actually get patch notes.
Okay.
Where I list all the things that I have done. But yeah, it's been kind of a while since I've had like I had like a decent sized one the other day, but it'd been a while since then, before that. So I need to actually I have about 3 or 4 things that are in kind of a half done state on my development machine that I just haven't had time to properly flesh out and really nail down the bugs in. So I need to finish those up and ship them off.
One thing, Rua, or I guess, did you guys use guild work when it was like the big thing to use?
Yeah, I did. Actually, guild work was what I used before I went onto the auction house forums, because how I came across the auction house forums was I wanted to kind of like upload all of the stuff I'd done in Delve and Adeline content, because I was part of a link shell and there was some competition kind of like stuff going on. And then I saw it was actually attached to this whole forum. I'm like, okay, I'll go and have a look at this then. But yeah, I remember guild work. Definitely do.
So was he part of, I don't know, that whole thing confused me. Do you know the person who made guild work? Because you still work. Okay.
I mean, he's the CTO of Discord. So
right.
We all know Stan. No, I knew Stan on Hades. Like I loaned him the silver pieces for his first relic. So we would compete for dynamic zones with our link shells. It was,
Oh man, remember that.
So what's the I guess the biggest thing that needs to be like fixed there? Is that something that you actively work on? Is that something that's kind of like, let me just kind of patch it till it kind of chugs along? Or
guild work right now mostly is there as a conduit for the window work plugin to update things on AH, and the live shout stuff, which is part of the guild work plugin. Not a lot of people use the social aspect anymore, which is fine. The 14 section's been broken forever because no one maintained it. So it's kind of drifting along. I mostly just try to keep it up and running so it doesn't break other things. Like I want live shouts to work and I want the gateway to work. And as long as those work, I'm mostly content, because I don't really have time to fix everything. And if I'm only going to fix one thing, it's going to be AH proper. So.
Right. So the guild work, it helps with the pricing on the forums too?
Nope.
On the site or the window work plugin? Okay.
Well, I guess it does help in the sense that when you see the Bazaar stuff, like the Bazaar stuff comes through the guild work plugin. Like that's really just crowdsourced information. Anything on the auction house proper comes from our own scraper. That has nothing to do with guild work. Okay.
All right. Well, so what's some things in, is there anything big in development now that, well, let me back up a little bit. I want to go back to one question that I was going to say for Final Fantasy 11 section, but a year ago in the last podcast that you did, or a year and a half now, like a lot has changed in 18 months just with the game. So I remember like one of the comments was made, well, the game's probably got a few more years in it. Mm-hmm. Well, then a couple months after that podcast, they came out and said, hey, guess what? We're going to do a 20th anniversary. They've renewed the servers indefinitely, so we're not going to tell you it's the end of the game every year now. So do you think that kind of brings some new life into the auction house site to kind of bring some new things? Or how are you feeling on that aspect of, hey, this game is going to be here a little longer than what we thought? So
here's the thing. If you go to the database page on the AH site, so the database page is really just a raw dump of statistics of how many unique characters we saw transactions from on each server. And so at the bottom of that, about, I don't know, like a year ago, maybe a little less, I put some just basic like back of a napkin math at the bottom saying, what's the worst case scenario? We know how many unique characters made auction house transactions. So let's take the worst case scenario. We bunch them into groups of 16. So it's like one guy and 15 mules for one account because that's cheaper than 16 accounts. Let's assume that no one has like extra wardrobes or any of that. What is the minimum amount of money that Final Fantasy XI makes? The absolute minimum. And even the worst case scenario, it's still profitable.
Yeah.
Like just based on what developer salaries are in Japan and what co-location costs are, like unless they have the worst colo contract of all time, and let's be honest, that's in play for Square Enix. There's just no way that Final Fantasy XI doesn't still make quite a bit of money.
Have you redone that this year? See if it's higher than last year?
The math is done dynamically. It gets updated as the stats change. Because it's not complicated math. Like it just calculates every time you run the page. So like that number at the bottom is always up to date.
And I'll have to check that out. I'd like to see the population the transactions in February of last year to.
Oh, it doesn't track that. It doesn't track that. It's just like the most recent stats.
Okay. To check it out for sure, though.
I could get those stats, but they're not displayed on the page right now.
Well, I would just like to know, because I know last year you said it was like 8 to 10 million or something, like worst case scenario. I would like to see if it's kind of an upward trajectory, if it's still flat, because I feel like it's just from population growth. It's looks like it's upward.
Let me look at this. I'm sure I'm glowing right now because of the white screen. The current number on it, it's assuming like the worst case scenario is that it makes about $2.5 million a year. I would say it's far more likely that it makes close to about 10 to 12. And it's not going to cost them more than, at this point, not more than 1.5 to 2 million a year, because they just have a skeleton crew. There's not a ton of hardware, like
potatoes and a server. I mean,
there's just a server. Like it just can't be that expensive. So they probably make profit 5 to 6 mil a year or more, which is a lot of money for any of us, but it's pocket change to a large company. But the fact of the matter is, as long as Final Fantasy XI is making money, it's a numbered Final Fantasy title. They will never kill it unless it is losing money for months or years. They just won't. It's too important.
That's kind of why they put everything into saving 14 when version 1.0 bombed so hard, because like you said,
exactly it.
Yeah, because like you just said, it's a numbered Final Fantasy series entry. So if that went under, that would be pretty major brand damage. That's why it was all hands on deck. And Square Enix has relatively recently, they've streamlined their entire online games division. So the teams from 11 and 14 both have access to roughly the same stuff and the same people. So I'm pretty comfortable in the knowledge that 11's not being taken offline anytime soon. So
do you think I feel like when I think about the like PR team or whatever, I feel like it's just a hot mess over there. It's like every year it's like, this is the last thing we're going to come out with Ffxi. There's nothing else coming ever. This is the end. And then it's just like a year later, it's like, oh God, the game's still alive. Here's something else. I don't know.
Good PR isn't necessarily Square Enix's strongest suit, which is probably why they've kind of invested in community reps recently. Because I think back to the initial drama over Absolute Virtue, and like
I've seen that interview.
And then there was the Pandemonium Warden scandal, where there was just people passing out.
Oh, what's that?
You didn't hear this?
You don't know? Oh man,
I remember
that.
Okay,
they
had the group of like 36 people.
Calm down. I remember that, but I didn't hear people passing out.
No, they fought it for like a day, like 18 hours or something. It was
There's a group of Alliance 36 players who fought it, who were just between rotating weekend and people who had recovered and all of that out. They fought it for 18 hours. People were passing out. People were like not taking breaks or anything like that, and literally playing the game until they're getting sick from lack of eating, lack of drinking, all of that.
Yeah,
and I'm not just talking about beer either,
Yeah. Then the players decided to. Who did they go to? Did they go to Kotaku? I think they went to Kotaku, didn't they? With it, and they said it's time we actually remind Square Enix of their promise to their players, and they showed that screen you see every time you log in, like, do not let this game affect your life, work, whatever, relationships. And they said, you've evidently forgotten your own message. And it was such a big PR fire. It actually made pretty big news in Japan, from what I remember. And
interesting.
SE was just, they were slow to react on the PR fire, and then they're just like, okay, all hands on deck, crisis here. They went and like emergency maintenance the game. So Pandemonium Warden.
Did they make it easier?
No, they
put a time limit on it.
Yeah, 2-hour time limit. And they reduced the number of forms Pandemonium Warden took from 21 to 11.
Okay. Yeah. Did you read the interview from a few months ago where they said, yeah, we trolled you with absolute virtue. You were never supposed to ever beat it. Like, in the interview, they were like, they regretted making it, but they literally said, like, yeah, we made it with the intention that no one would ever beat it legitimately without using some type of mechanic or whatever that, bugged it out. That's pretty messed up.
So, and then there was a whole debacle about 14's launch, and you had Tanaka, who was just saying, oh, the bad reviews are down to Western audiences and Western media outlets like GameSpot, IGN. And then there's like Famitsu and Kotaku were like, what? Real? And then
that was the equivalent of them saying, what, don't you guys have cell phones?
Yeah. So good PR has never been their strong suit.
When you see like terrible coding in game, like, does that like bug you? It's like, I don't know. I just assume that like some stuff is like, all right, I know that you guys just didn't even try here.
I don't get mad about bad programming, because that stuff is supposed to be caught in QA. Like, that's a failure of management and leadership to not properly budget time to fix it. Because like, everyone writes bad code. I write bad code all the time. I get paid for it. It's great. But management not understanding that there will be hiccups and there will be mistakes, and budgeting the proper amount of time. Like, anytime you see a story about, game developers in crunch, like, that's a leadership failure.
Yeah.
We didn't budget the time, we didn't budget the people, we didn't budget the quality assurance, we didn't budget just the planning. If you as a professional developer, game or non-game, if you're working 55 to 60 hours a week, that is a failure of your leadership. That is a failure of your company to plan. So when I'm onboarding a new minion at work, the thing I have to drill into their heads is, I'm going to badger you about your timesheet every week. And everyone hates timesheets. I hate them too. They suck. But one, they're how we get paid. And two, if you're working a ton of hours, I need to know, because I need to know that you need help. You need help, or we didn't budget the amount of time that we needed for something, or the amount of people, or whatever. And then I need to adjust that. I need to fix it, because someone who's working 55 to 60 hours a week all the time, they're not going to do their best work. They're going to get burnt out. They're going to make mistakes. And that's what happens with game development all the time. There's all this crunch, just these long hours all the time. And you can't get more than really 45 good hours a week out of someone. You just can't. The brain doesn't work that way, not for very long. Like, you can have one week where you're like, all right, let's go. And, 80 hours and 48 Red Bulls later, you crank out a product, but there's going to be problems because you couldn't think of everything. So, no.
I need you to talk to my supervisor.
I'm a consultant. For the right price, I will.
Yeah. Whenever I work more than 50 hours in a week, I feel myself just burning out. And with what I do, if I make a mistake, I could potentially poison people. So, yeah, not good.
It is a brewery, by the way.
Oh,
He's supposed to, since you're in Cincinnati, when he finally does ship me some of his beer, I can, if you drink a beer at all. I don't know if you do.
I'll have a word with DHL. But yeah, I'm an assistant brewer doing an online diploma. and making beer in the process. So I'm doing a good job and getting paid for it. But if I work about 45 to 50 hours, especially over 50 hours, because sometimes you'll have to do like 2 brews in a day, and we typically split it. But if someone can't come in and you are just feeling it by that point, you're like, oh boy. Okay. And then you get to like the last stage, like, oh shit, did I add this? Did I add this? Is it set right?
Yeah, I can't imagine like coding too. Like it's just like one little like something. The whole thing is gonna
one semicolon in the wrong place and the whole thing falls over.
Yeah, interesting. So I guess too on the site, do you do any? Is there anything 14 related still on there that you have to maintain? Press the button.
It's a deep regret of mine. So I rewrote the XIV Pro side of the house a long time ago. So originally we got data into the system by taking the mobile app and like dumping the database from there and importing it. And I said, all right, well, that's dumb. I'm going to fix that because it was super out of date and like they weren't going to update the app anymore. So I actually wrote an extractor utility that takes the 14 DAT files and dumps them into CSVs, load them up in Excel if you want.
Wow.
And since then I've switched to a program that does more or less the same thing, but it's a little faster and it got updated on its own. I didn't have to keep chasing the moving target. But I wrote all the import stuff, but it was just too hard to keep up with the data loads because they happened all the time, and it was harder and harder to find some free time from Matt to get stuff loaded. And it just fell behind. And at this point I'd have to make a ton of changes, and it's the kind of thing where if I took like 2 weeks off of work, like if I just took 2 weeks off, or I left a job and was going to start another one in 2 weeks and just really cranked it out, it could be totally up to snuff. But there's really 2 problems. One, I don't really have that 2 weeks to do. And 2, the killer app of the AH side is the auction house data, and you can't get that with 14. We've tried a couple ways. I've tried 3 or 4 different ways to get it, and there's just no way to reliably get it. Like
that's what's going to be my question.
It's blocked at the server side. There's an API now that the mobile app, the 14 companion app uses, but it is significantly locked down, and you can't just add extra accounts to do it because it's got to be linked. So you just get banned if you abuse it. You can't crowdsource it because the data set's too big. So there's really no way to get that, at which point the site isn't really all that much more interesting than like Garland tools or even just a straight up wiki. Like there's no reason people would go to that site over something, again, like Garland tools that are laid out. So I would like to fix it, but it would take a bunch of time, and it's just not really worth it at this point. It doesn't buy anything for anyone. Now, if people came to me and said, no, I would absolutely use the 14 side because I really like the site and I like the layout, and, maybe, but I just don't see a world where that actually happens because, again, there's better sites that are already out there.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, I think the biggest thing would be if you pull marketplace data, but you just explain why it's too hard. But that was my biggest thing. Is I remember when 14 came out, like I wasn't on the auction house forums too much, but I know everybody was like, "Are we going to be able to use this on 14 marketplace?" Blah blah.
I've got the prototypes for it. I just need the ability to grab the data, but there's no way to grab the data. Also, I would like to give a shout out to my friend Ari from TTOF, who pointed out to me that Wiggle Sticks was running KI. God, I love Wiggle Sticks.
Wiggle Sticks. I didn't know him, but I'm glad you got that name. I could tell it was like in the back of your mind.
Just really eating
that, just itching it back there, man. Just like, what was his name? The whole time he's talking, he's like, I just need to know Mr. Wiggles.
That's a very memorable name.
I know, it was driving me nuts. I was like, I knew it started with W, but yeah, even now TTOF has my back. So
that's hilarious. So where do you think, what do you think of the future of 11 now? I mean, what's your tie to the game now? Because you don't play much now. I mean, do you think that you would be involved in the community if you weren't an admin right now? I mean, I know it's maybe a tough question, but
I'm not really playing, so probably not. But that said, I don't mind. Like, I'm happy to be where I'm at. The community has been great to me even before. There's a reason I got back involved with it, and now I see it as kind of, something that I can do to give back to a community that was so good to me for so long. Is, I keep guild work running, and I try to keep AH from falling over. And
yeah, I mean, that's huge. I think, a lot of people would echo the sentiment of like, if you weren't here and he's not comfortable handing the baby to anyone else, there would be no one taking care of the baby.
I will say this, like, everyone is always like, oh, I'm sorry you have to deal with rowdy people. But the fact of the matter is the rowdy shitheads are 1% of the people I deal with. Yeah. Everyone else is super appreciative and thankful, and it's part of why I keep doing this job, because there's people who clearly appreciate it. And so I'm glad to be here, and I'm happy to keep doing it, even if I haven't logged in like a while. Yeah, other than to like patch so I can do dat mining.
Yeah. Your comment on seeing over the rowdy people kind of makes me think you're like Kermit always trying to talk down Statler and Waldorf.
What?
You remember that? Statler and Waldorf. It's those trolls on the Muppet Show.
Oh, yeah,
the old bit from the balcony.
Yes, the balcony.
What are you talking about? It doesn't need to talk those people down. They were the best people in the entire Muppets.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, you can't compare
the loudest.
They're fun.
You can't compare the rowdy forum mutants to Statler and Waldorf, because Statler and Waldorf were funny.
That's true. So usually the one
the rowdy forum mutants.
Some of them are pretty funny if you ask me, but yeah, some of them just like being arses for the sake of being arses. But some of them I legit think all you're missing is just like soundbite.
We can fix that.
Well, some of them just need that soundbite, and the other ones are a few fries short of a Happy Meal. So I mean,
yeah.
So do you think being a developer, seeing what we're seeing now with what Rua said, with them streamlining their development team, them announcing this new, while it seems it's going to be an extremely slow rollout of new storyline, do you think on the back end they're gearing up for a bigger piece of material they're going to bring?
I don't think so. Here's the thing. The engine is still kind of tied to the PS2 dev kits, and I can't imagine they have the resources to justify upgrading it. Like, there's no ROI, because here's the thing, the player base is not going to expand. Like, there's new players who show up occasionally, but it's a trickle. The player base is the people who have been here for years, and a lot of them don't even want things to change, really. Like, I floated the idea a while ago of streamlining the AH layout, and people were like, no, don't change it. Like, what are you talking about? It's from 2000.
It's human nature. We don't like change.
It was very good in 2007. It's kind of showing its age. And I'm like, no, don't change it. Don't. All right, fine. So I don't think there's any scenario where Square makes radical changes to the game. Like, I also don't think we're ever going to see this Nexon game. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I know we keep saying
it's still on the roadmap.
No, because here's the thing. Naoki Yoshida, the 14 boss, he runs 11 now too, and I think after the scars of Realm Reborn's relaunch, I don't think he's going to let anything that isn't absolutely top shelf see the light of day, and I don't think Nexon is ever going to give it to them. Like, I think what they give might be pretty, but it's not going to convey the game itself. Like, think about it. Can you imagine a Final Fantasy 11 that doesn't have mid-fight gear swapping?
Yeah, I heard that in the last episode. Like, I think honestly, Square Enix is trying to find a way out of a contract. I feel like when they announced it, when they said Rhapsodies was going to be the end of the game, and they announced the mobile thing, they had this big mobile contract because mobile gaming was exploding then. And then I think as 11 has stayed alive and stagnated in growth and kind of peaks but never declines too much. And then with that launch of, with how A Realm Reborn played out, I agree. I think it's a contract thing. I think they're trying to figure out a way to stall it long enough to to get it off the books, but
I don't know. I don't think it ever sees the light of day. I think eventually they do something, but I don't know what, because there's no case to be made for any of the possible outcomes. Like they're not going to let something bad replace, like they're not going to pivot to a mobile game at this point. If they were going to do that, it could have happened a long time ago. There's no money in revamping the engine. They're not going to give it the full Realm Reborn treatment because, one, the original game is still making money, and two, they don't cannibalize the 14 player base, and three, the existing player base definitely doesn't want to restart. So
nope.
I think it's going to drift along like this with little content patches for a while, and maybe someday that changes, and I hope that I'm wrong and something big happens, but I don't see any scenario where it does. Like there's no way to justify it from a business perspective.
Yeah, because there's the other game too that came out and failed in Japan. It didn't come outside Japan, but if you downloaded like on the iPhone, you could do like the Japanese app store and get that Grandmasters game. I think is what it was called. I don't know if you guys ever played that, but it was in all Japanese, but literally you could walk around Vanadil and it was kind of like a tactics type thing where you ran into mobs and stuff, and it flopped and died like a year later. So
yeah, because a lot of players don't want something like that. They want Final Fantasy 11.
Right.
Like the big complaint about Final Fantasy 14 1.0 wasn't that it was slow or anything. It was that it wasn't the better version of 11 that they'd been expecting.
Yeah, and like, can you imagine, like, the whole thing that makes 11 is the combat system, like the way that it works. And I've got 100 pieces of gear for this one job. If I don't have the functionality to be able to constantly move that gear around, like it's not 11, like it's just a different game.
Yeah,
but
the gear swapping, the constant min maxing, the small adjustments potentially making huge differences.
Well,
it's. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, it's all just part of it. You don't think about it, but 20 accuracy could be the difference of a capped accuracy rate and 80% accuracy on something, and just being able to constantly be able to make the adjustments. And even though you have the guides available to the game, if you're missing one piece on the absolute best in slot, that could have trickle down effects that adjust what you're using in various other slots as well to increase your overall DPS outputs or your fast cast potency or your cure potencies or anything like that. The entire idea of everything is situational is just what makes this game so great.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things about 11 that I haven't seen replicated anywhere else, and we might never see again. One is the horizontal progression, which is, as we point out, the mid-fight gear swapping, the fact that everything is situational. There's no like straight eye-level path like there is in WoW or 14 or anything else where like you equip the gear with the highest stat and off you go. The other thing is, and this is one of the major complaints about 14, is that classes are too rigid. Whereas classes in 11, they're not really like, they don't conform to the Holy Trinity model of, tank, DPS, healer. Like, everything is kind of just a box of toys. And with the sub-job system, you can build some really ridiculous toys. Like, everyone here knows someone who went to something on Winja and actually tanked. Like, we've all met that guy. We all know they exist, and we all know that it can work.
To your point, what's crazy is that system, I think, has allowed people to create combinations that Square Enix didn't even foresee.
Oh,
like Ninja Bard, was that ever even in their foresight? Like Ninja being a tank in general back in the day. Like
there's no way Ninja Bard could have ever been in foresight, because Bard was never designed to be a sub job. Bard was always designed, if you're going to go anything Bard, you're going Bard anything. And that's just how it was. Bard was designed to have slight offensive capabilities, to be able to be an all-around utility support, that your whole purpose in your game is to make the guy standing next to you better at whatever in the hell they're supposed to be doing.
Well, Ninja was supposed to be an enfeebling DPS, with all the various ninjutsu and the wheel. Like, it was meant to be, this weird hybrid enfeeble elemental DPS, and instead it's a tank for gear. Is it still a tank? It doesn't feel like it's still a tank anymore.
It is.
It's trying.
It's situationally a tank, but
don't get Ruick going. Don't get Bob going. They're
just
deeply passionate about it. But
yeah,
like it just seemed like the last time I looked, like Rune Fencer was just shitting all over everything. So
I've got things to say on that, but another time.
Well, one of my favorite I was young when I like remember reading this, but one of my like favorite moments of like looking back is when that one Japanese player released that entire article on enmity, like volatile enmity and cumulative, and then all of a sudden Paladin Ninja, boom. And then they were able to like use the ninjutsu spells to constantly move their hate up, and people just paid attention to those more. Like that's never going to happen in another game. This hidden math behind this spell is going to impact my ability to control things around me. Like no way. It's amazing.
Canacan.livejournal.com, baby. Bookmark it, know it, love it.
Yep. Yeah, I was like 17, 18 when that person released that, maybe 19. I might have been in college. But I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading, but how this dude's an inspiration. That's back when everybody had their own journal. You weren't living on Final Fantasy if you didn't do a journal back then. But
back because I remember the craziest part of that is me and my dad used to play Final Fantasy 11 together. My dad used to play a Paladin primarily, and it was back in that time frame where your Paladin gear sets was like your tanking set, your slightly less tanky set, your slightly more tanky set. You really didn't have a whole lot because you didn't really have the gear variety for fast cast for all of it, because that was back in Rise of the Zillart, so you didn't have squat really available to you for gear back when shield blocking was essentially an additional parrying tool. And when that post, my dad was sitting there and he said, like, well, I guess I found something to spend this 200 million gil I have on. And he started building an actual enmity set, started adjusting, making things so when he used provoke or used flash, it actually ended up having a lot more impact on it. And it was a very, very interesting time growing up when you and your dad play the same MMO together.
Yeah. I discovered something, or I found out something about enmity about a month and a half ago. It was from Martel. Martel, not sure how he found this. I think I'll look through my chat log and find it later. But I didn't know that wearing enmity when you actually took a hit reduces the hate you bleed. I didn't know that. I'm like, whoa, how long have I been playing this and not known that?
Whoa. Explain that. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, enmity. If you wear enmity in your tanking build when you're taking damage, you lose cumulative enmity when you take a hit, depending on how hard you get hit. But if you have enmity plus in your set, that it reduces how much you lose.
So that's almost a whole gear set in itself, like enmity plus NDT hybrid. Like that's like a different.
That's
so it's not.
Ninja and Paladin excel at that big time because they can maintain, the cap is plus 100. They can maintain plus 100 enmity in their tanking build without even trying.
Nice.
And that's also like even if you don't have a whole lot of available gear options to you, as long as you can still hit your primary stat caps, your 50% PDT, your 26% MDT with shell 4 up, be able to hit those relevant numbers. And then you can just sneak in a couple of extra pieces of enmity because it's that same point, like I mentioned with the 20 accuracy earlier. 20 additional enmity in your tanking in your I'm gonna get hit set is a fairly significant damage difference in the amount of hate you can hold over the long scheme of a fight.
Yeah, and
Rooks, you had something, didn't you?
No, I was just gonna say what Rua said.
And you also have to factor in HP. So that's another thing Paladin's got a shit ton of. Because there's actually, most people see Rune's EPO and think, oh, that's so strong. But I know this is kind of anecdotal, but I've had a far easier time tanking the highest level content around on Paladin than I have on Rune. It's
interesting.
Paladin's got it a lot easier.
The argument around Rune Fencer isn't that it's sturdier than a Paladin, it's that it's sturdy enough and contributes more damage. Like, that's the argument.
Yeah, well,
it does do a lot more damage.
I personally think people really overstate Rune Fencer's damage output. It's decent if you fully buff it, but in content like Dynamis Wave 3, the Rune Fencer is often in the tank party. They're not getting full DPS buffs.
Yeah,
because without
it's definitely dependent on like being fully buffed out, but kind of on to the point of some of those mechanics though, from a programming standpoint, do you think those are like intentional? Like, do you think when they designed that they're like, okay, if they have more enmity equipped whenever they get hit, they're gonna lose less enmity? Like, do you think that's intentional, or is that something like a byproduct?
Absolutely. No, it's like there are parts of the game that were clearly well designed and thought out, well in advance. Like, we all like to shit on Tanaka with good reason, but the fact of the matter is he laid the groundwork for a game that's lasted as a subscription game for 2 decades. So a lot of those systems, even the ones that have faced serious revamps like the enmity system, the bones of them have always been good. The place where Square falls down with 11 is they never, I guess they don't give enough credit to what board MMO players will think up to do with their box of toys. Like, they fought Ninja being a tank forever, and they finally relented and gave us the R-Hat set. But like, they just couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe what the player base would get up to when, if you take a look at what the tools they have, it was the obvious choice. It was, wow, I can take no damage at all. Wow, that's probably a pretty good tank if I can cap hate.
That's true. That's true.
So,
What? Well, I guess just along the lines of the future. I know you're not playing right now, so you may not be as connected, but I'd still be interested to know your thoughts. Have you seen the new artwork for the new storyline?
I have. I need to log in and do it.
Well, there's not much. Take about 10 minutes.
and it's
So wait-
I probably have time for that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just saying,
that fits your free time. So,
wait until next month rolls out, because I think they're adding another quest or two, so it might take about 15 minutes instead.
Oh,
yeah.
well, I better break that up.
Where do you think? If you've looked at the artwork, anything that kind of stands out that at least I know you don't think there's anything coming. I think there's an expansion coming personally at the end of this storyline. But
it's going to take a while to get there, though.
I
That's
just
the thing.
18 months, I think.
Well, I don't think they would like slow roll an expansion, because I think they learned their lesson from that on Wings of the Goddess, which took forever to come out. And here's the thing:
PTSD.
when I played Wings of the Goddess on Rooks, it felt weird and disjointed, and I couldn't quite follow what's going on. And when I did it as an alt, I did it all in one swoop, and it was like, oh, well, this makes all kinds of sense. This is a great storyline, because it's a really good storyline as long as you do it all at once. I don't think they'll make that mistake again. So if we do get something, it's going to come out of nowhere. But I just don't see how it happens. They don't have the resources for it. And I can't imagine they're going to get allocated unless the number one Final Fantasy XI superfan, Naoki Yoshida, decides to, allocate some resources to do it, which he might, because he's on the record as saying, yeah, I love Final Fantasy XI. So
well, I think too, to support some of it is, like I said, the one, they streamline the development team, but they keep coming out with these things. Okay, so I forgot about this. So 6 months ago in an interview, this is with the storage problems. It was the questionnaire for the canceled event in East Coast, wherever that was.
Yeah, in Boston. Yeah, I had tickets. I was actually going to fly up there, and then the Rona wrecked everything.
Yeah, Rona wrecked everything. They said in the interview, it's no way possible. There's no way we can improve inventory. It's not possible. We're not doing it. It can't happen.
Oh, wait.
2 months ago, in another interview, they said, oh, yeah, probably in 2021, we've got another expansion to the MogSafe system coming. And we're like, or the Mog wardrobes. And we're like, okay,
they
all right.
absolutely can fix that. The problem isn't that they can't add more space, because now with the consoles phased out, space is the least of their problems. It's that they need to do something about their network protocol, because that's what takes so long to zone now, is that it constantly loads every single item, which it makes sense that you want some security against that, but there's got to be a faster way.
Well, they said it's play online is the problem.
No,
like
No.
in the interview. But yeah, I don't know anything about it. But they just said like the Play Online is integrated into the entire infrastructure, and
unless something about Play Online is forcing their network packets to be constructed in a horrible way, which maybe that's the problem, but it's an absolutely fixable problem that they just need. I think what it is, they don't have a real back-end system programmer on staff who can make those changes with confidence.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Saying, if you're listening, Square Enix, Rooks is definitely accepting job offers. You know, it's just what I just heard.
I think
there is zero chance they can afford me.
I think Rooks is right. If they do add, if they do add an expansion of some sort, they're going to have to do something with the engine, because the engine is showing its age. Let's be real. That's why DG Voodoo is a thing. You can override.
It's amazing.
The DirectX.
Yeah, I don't think it happens. There's no ROI for it. Like, they're not going to bring in some huge swath of new players, which is what it would take to justify it. So unless they do it purely out of Final Fantasy pride thing, which we can't put that entirely past them.
No, because they redid 14.
But that was a business decision. Like, they needed that to not fail after Spirits Within tanked the company the first time.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's why it's Square Enix and not Squaresoft now. No.
I'm like, I remember watching it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This isn't even Final Fantasy.
I walked out. That is one of the only 3 movies I've ever walked out on in my life.
So I'm going to be honest. The first time I saw that movie, I was still a kid, essentially, and retarded, and I thought it was pretty decent. And then the second time I watched it was like 3 years ago, and yep.
Yeah.
Dog shit. I would rather watch 90 minutes of dogs taking shits than fucking Spirits Within.
I mean, you can set that to Gackety Sack, it'll be pretty funny. No, I don't think we get another expansion. I would love to be wrong, truly. I just don't see
so what do they lead this up to then? They said we've got over the course of many updates, we're going to roll this out. Like, what would be the point of adding that right now? And it just so coincides with the 20th anniversary.
I don't know. I have learned not to put anything past Naoki Yoshida, but I just don't. I don't see the road to something there. And hey, that's why he gets paid the big bucks, I guess. Maybe he's found something I didn't. But
yeah.
I don't see how it happens.
So
I keep thinking.
Go ahead.
I keep thinking back to EverQuest. I mean, people thought EverQuest was never going to get something done to it, because EverQuest is older than 11. EverQuest is like the OG MMO, as far as I see it. Sure, you had things. You had stuff like RuneScape. You had Tibia. You had Diablo,
Ultima
and that lot. But EverQuest is like the one people go, yeah, okay. What do you think the biggest real mainstream MMO was? Probably EverQuest. Let's be real.
I broke my teeth on MUDs, so
I have no idea what that is.
It's basically text-based MMOs. So y'all with your fancy graphics, damn whippersnappers.
Yeah. He said mainstream. Okay, we didn't say
it was mainstream. They were everywhere.
Like
Yeah, I keep thinking back to what they did with EverQuest. I'm like, you're right. It's kind of a pipe dream, but it's not entirely outside the realms of possibility. Stranger things have happened. I mean, I just remember the stagnant period between Ffxi and Adeline when there was Void Watch and just wasn't much going on. And then out of nowhere, we had like one convention. It was like, new expansion. Oh, new job Geomancer. We're like, where the hell did this come from? Out of absolutely nowhere. We're like, yeah, because because that was like shortly after they announced 14, because they announced 14 before Adeline, like, the game's can be done. And like, 11's got a new expansion. Like, whoa, what?
You have to also keep in mind, like, even if a voracious resurgent doesn't lead to a new expansion, I would definitely not, factor out new battle content, you know. There's still a lot of content that can be used to be remade, and it does not take a whole hell of a lot of space to add a Bahamut V2. You know, where's the fucking Bahamut V2? Let's get, you know, Cloud of Darkness revamped in here. Let's get, they're still in, you know, Camlanot. We still have Elden Arch. We still have all of this awesome content from Vanilla, from, you know, Rise of the Zealot. There's still pieces of Chains of Promathia that hasn't been redone. You know, Oryu and Promathia aren't the only bosses in Chains of Promathia. You know, there's still a lot of content that could be brought to a new generation of the game without really taking away from anything that's currently going in the game.
I'm personally stunned we have not seen eye level Limbus yet.
I think that's the one. Next.
You think that's next to you?
Do you think, Rooks, do you think that's going to be Empyrean?
Probably, because it's tied into the same... well, I don't know. No, actually, Limbus was Artifact here, wasn't it?
Yeah. But they moved that to Omen.
Yeah. Like, it's either going to be eye level Limbus or eye level Neo Abyssi or something. Like, but as you point out, like, there's so many assets. Like, they don't need to generate more assets. Like, Ambuscade is just repurposed Legion, and it's been going strong for how long? There's so much stuff that they can make, and Limbus, I think, is the next obvious target because it's the biggest battle system that hasn't been remade in any way.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think, especially since looking at the Voracious Resurgence, you have the Dark Artifact gear. Dynamis Dream Zones, round 2, you know, Dynamis Bodicine, Dynamis Zarkabard 2, you know, I mean, there's... Like, if you just take a look at the pictures, like, if you just look at the picture and you're just like, somebody found a can of spray paint on their Aegis. I'm fucking Dynamis Zarkabard Divergence. Here we go. Let's get in there, Chief.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of, like, looking at the artwork was some type of revamp to the relics, all the relic weapons. Seems to be coming up, but all right, well, let's push the conversation forward a little bit here into kind of the last leg, and we'll get into some of the questions, and I'm just gonna get this one out of the way because you knew it was coming. When are we getting achievements? Is it coming? Is it kind of dead? We just you know,
there are multiple problems with achievements. The big one is that, well, okay, the thing that's stopping things from working right now is there's some problem that only happens in production. I can't make it happen on the test server. And that's the source of probably about 60% of people's trouble. So I've sent that stuff to Matt, but he has to be the one to look at it because I can't debug problems in production. So anything that I can reproduce locally, I can fix, but I can't fix that one. Like, there's at least a couple people, one in particular who should have capped achievement points, like has literally everything, and he doesn't show up on the score, and there's no reason for him not to. He's got an LSCOM profile, which is the blocker for some people, like, but he just doesn't tally, and he tallies on the test server, he doesn't tally in production, and I do not know why.
So just to clarify, before you continue to explain, some people might actually be wondering what we're talking about, but before they shut the link shell community down, that was the missing link, right? So you registered with that, and then it uploaded all of your missions and crafting, like all the other stuff. That's how it uploaded it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's since been shut down.
Yes.
So that link is gone. So finding a way to relink it and work is kind of what's missing, right?
Well, no, because it works if you submit stuff through guild work, but there's a case that some people run into where they never had an LSCOM profile. So things like mission data was never there. So I really need to, there's a couple of solutions to this. One is just doing all of those calculations server side based on titles. Like, if I see you have the Hero of Heroes title, I know you have Bastok rank 10 because that's where it comes from. We're looking for specific items. Like, if you've got a Rajas ring, you finished COP.
Okay. That makes sense.
There's workarounds for it, but all of that is it's a lengthy process.
Right.
So what I really want to do, I'm about 40% into rewriting the Guildwork client to pull all of that extra data because the existing Guildwork client is very old. And I mean, we can't actually even build it anymore. The things you need to build it don't exist. So the version of the client that's out there, like it just gets copied around. Never actually changes. So
I see all the faces the Sillies is making right now, and I'm making the same ones because I'm sitting here. I'm understanding this level, and you are talking up here.
No, I get what he's saying. I just like it. Just the tools to do what you need to do aren't there.
And that
it's all great to me.
So the existing Guildwork client doesn't pull things like mission information. It doesn't pull things like what else? Missions are really the big one. Like that's the stickler for a lot of it. But the Windower people, and I've talked with them about this, they have a full API that I can talk to. So I'm writing a new Guildwork client, which is harder than it looks. Because Guildwork does a whole bunch of stuff. And the thing is, I know if I don't include some of that stuff, someone is going to ask me why I turned it off.
That one feature that no one used. Where is it at?
Yeah.
Where's my remote chat on my app? Why is it not working?
Remote chats, some of the stuff like the calendaring, like, oh my God. And again, I don't want to turn it off because the people who still have Guildwork Premium, they're who pay for the servers to stay up. Like all that money goes to Scrag now. Like Guildwork Premium and site donations, and advertising revenue, they go to him and they keep the servers up. So I would never want to do anything to intentionally screw over Guildwork Premium users. Like that's the one. Like if you screw over your paying customers, you've crossed a line.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is you can't even cancel your subscription without blocking it, so it's good.
You cannot. No, I need to go in there and try to fix the Stripe stuff because the Stripe bits there were so old that like the API they talk to doesn't even exist anymore. Like it got deprecated 3 years ago and no one ever fixed it. So
like I pay for it now, but it says that I'm not a premium member, so I just gave up. I'm just like, all right, I'll just pay for it.
Okay, anyone who's listening in that scenario, if you're paying for it and you're not getting credit, talk to me and I will flag you as like I can just go into the data. Like I have access to the Guildwork production database. Like I have full Guildwork access, so I can change that anytime I want. I can give you premium from here till forever. So no, just ask me like that.
Okay. Like
send me a PM and I will fix it. It takes like 5 minutes.
Okay.
I've done.
Well, there you go.
I've done that.
If you're paying for it, just message him.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I won't harp on you anymore. About that. But I think people like the best number you said. I think you're 40% done with a new Guildwork client that will at least get you moving in the right direction to hopefully remedy that situation.
If I finish a new Guildwork client, it fixes everybody because I can relate the mission information, and that's what's missing. That's what chokes up the. Because for whatever reason, when I take that check out of the achievement parser, like it still doesn't fix things, but that's the only thing that's different between people who get processed and people who don't. So there's got to be something there.
Or we could just petition for him to just give you rights to the site, right? I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that, but
make it happen.
I'm never going to ask for that. If he wants me to have production access, he knows where I am. He can give it to me whenever he wants. But
okay. Well, I mean, I guess this kind of leads into the next question too, in terms of the support side, because you said it's what pays for the servers. One question from Volley was, can we get an update on the donations part? Like when you click on there, it's like out of date. And also it's like, where does the money actually go? Like getting some clarity there. So maybe with a revamp on the donation may bring kind of an insurgence of some investment.
All that is, well, I mean, the money doesn't go to me. I don't get paid.
Right.
No, the money just goes to keep the servers on, and it's advertising revenue and Guildwork Premium and donations. But the advertising revenue and Guildwork Premium basically covers it at this point. So if you want to donate, obviously feel free, but we're not in a position where we need to do that right now. Like if you remember, there was a bunch of server instability around the start of the year because we actually moved hosting companies to a setup that gave us a cheaper setup and more consolidated hardware. So it's one of
so I do say this is the salesman coming out in me. So I see an opportunity, and what I think is missing is I think he needs to recognize that people are willing to donate if more resources are brought on to move along some of these things. So obviously you're not, you don't ask for those things, but I think maybe it's worth somehow mentioning, hey man, there may be a demand for this. If we revamp this and there's interest in people, bringing in investments into getting some of this along. Cause I'm just telling you, like the vibe in the community is going to continue to go up as we've even though the first implementation of the storyline might have been lackluster. I kind of see it continue to kind of go up, but I don't know. That's me, but I don't know what you think there.
We'll see. I will get him to update the donations thing because it's a manual process, and I don't see those numbers. I don't have access to that PayPal account. So,
well, I think too the question was like, what does the actual money actually go to?
It goes to server maintenance and Scrag gold-plated Lexus.
Yep. So that's where the need is. I think it's time to maybe expand into some of those and maybe help you out a little bit. But another question here was, and I kind of know where they're going with this because there's like a red mage node, but when someone asked, easier to find job nodes with gear sets. So like just an example, you may know what I'm talking about, but like there's a really good red mage one that has every gear set possible and what you should do, but like you can't find it. There's no way to actually find that unless someone would actually just post like node 904 or whatever it is. So I don't know if I explains it or not. But
I guess I would need to know more of what they want to do. I have a couple of things sketched out in on a whiteboard about how to. So right now, when you load up the front page, you see the most recent threads box.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to add, if I can do it in a way that isn't horrible from a computation perspective, is have a kind of a featured threads box, which doesn't sound like it'd be bad, but the way that the forum code, it's not always great. But I want like a featured threads box for like, here's the red mage guide, and here's the blue mage guide, and here's this. And I just want to, even if it's manually curated, I don't want to have like an upvote system like Reddit. Like I don't want that. I want, a little bit more curation around it. If we're talking about threads, that's easy. But like individual posts, that's a little harder. And I remember when you sent me the list of questions, like searching for gear sets is never going to happen because as of a month ago, take a wild guess how many item sets are in the Final Fantasy 11 page database.
100,000.
You're closer than I thought you'd be. On my dev server, there are
120?
129,540, containing 1,621,722 items. So you're never going to get to search that. That's never happening.
Well, I'll send you, and this will be afterwards, kind of what I'm talking about. Like it's a node, but then it has like every gear set in it. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, except that who maintains that? Because gear sets change all the time.
Well, I guess it's an individual's node, so it's like up to the individual to update that. So I'm not sure how you'd maintain that, but
see, that's the thing. It's like if it's user generated stuff, then that's that's the purpose of the forums. But what happens when that gets out of date? Do I change all the links?
So I guess one thing I could ask is like, can this may be possible? I don't know. Can you follow people on the forums? So if this person maintains this node, is it possible to just, okay, I want to follow this person because they always update this node. So if there's any changes, I can just, you can bookmark the node, but
bookmark the node. There's not like a follow system because the age forums predate most mainline social media. But
the beginning. Yeah, no, that's fine.
There's a friend system, but it's mutual. Like you have to be friends with each other. You can't just follow. It's not followers. It's friends.
That's okay. I think you answered the question. It's good.
There's certainly ways to deal with like subscribing to threads or, I don't know. Like I haven't found a good, like it's not a new problem. It's something I've thought about before, but I haven't found a good way to do it within the existing code base. Because here's the thing about the AH code base. It's old.
Old.
It's not bad. Like it's not. It's given the fact that it's held up for 13 years with pretty minimal changes, it's really well written code, but it is very old, and there's just a lot of things around it that have slowly built up over time, and changing anything is so.
Especially when you don't have access to even publish it, so you gotta.
Well, no, that's not the biggest deal, because I have a test machine. I can look.
Oh, that's right.
See,
you got the server.
Yeah, so that's not the issue. The problem is, if I want to make a change, it's not making the change that's hard, because it's not that big of a deal. It's making a change in a way that doesn't accidentally break something else. So, or the more probable scenario is make a change that's computationally expensive, and it ends up driving our server costs through the roof. So, like, everything on AH is heavily cached, which is why sometimes things, don't update quite like the way you think they should.
Okay.
But all that caching means the site runs very quickly and relatively cheaply. So those are the considerations I have to make when I make any changes. Can I do this? Yes. Can I do it without breaking something? Probably. Is it going to cost us like $7,000 a month?
Probably shouldn't do it. Rue, do you have something to add before we just got
give me a moment to go and get something. Back in a sec. Won't be long.
Okay. No, you're good. So what I guess this next question I'll ask, and then I'll say it to him when he gets back. But someone asked like a better area for, since it is kind of the main area where everyone goes, a better like content creator section. Because I don't know how much you pay attention to like YouTube and stuff like that, but there's been a substantial increase in the amount of people creating content. So I kind of agree. It would be cool to have like a section that kind of highlighted content that people are bringing out, whether it's
like a forum subsection for streamers and podcasters, because that's not hard. I can do that. Like, I'll send Scrag that tonight.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, I think like
I added a forum subsection for DAP modders. Like, I don't even know when it was. It was recently, but I say recently, but time doesn't mean anything in the age of Rona. So it might have been 6 years for all I know. No, I think it was like a month ago. I added the DAP modder section, and it's got a whole bunch of posts in it now. I think it was Radial Arcana that asked me to do that. So
yeah, because I post, and like sometimes you try to figure out where to post. Like I'll post with the podcast in general and stuff, but sometimes it just kind of gets lost with other stuff. So there's more and more people like actively, especially like listening, to the podcast and stuff, knowing like, hey, go to the forums. There's a new section where all kinds of people are uploading links to their the content they're making. So I think that'd be really cool.
I'll probably put it under like streaming, and because this is kind of streaming, sort of. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't do streaming. I would just put something more content related, because it's not as many people streaming, because you kind of got the little Twitch thing on the left. The more content that's coming out is less streaming and more dedicated material for people. So, So yeah.
All right. Well, it's something to think about, and I'll write something up. Like, send me a PM with like what you really want for details, and we'll talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, Rue, you might have some thoughts there too. And this is the last question, so anything else would be things that you guys want to bring up. But someone had mentioned it would be nice to have a new section added on the auction house site for people to kind of go in and put in their new like YouTube videos and stuff, versus like throwing it on a random forum and things like that. So. I don't know if you have any thoughts there, but
I'm going to say, the BG wiki has a page, but that's a wiki, not really a forum. There's like a whole page on BG dedicated to all the job guide videos people have done. But I think there's more than a few job forums that have like added a video I've done to the OP that most people are going to go to anyway. Whenever they see a thread titled job guide, they'll just go to like the OP and then work their way down from there, and then they'll see it. And then somebody's like, oh, could we have your permission? I'm like, have at it, Hoss. It's there for people. But
yeah, the biggest thing I hate going through the job guides, like, and why it would be great to just have a central location for people's posts, is I hate flipping through 100 pages of people's posts to try to find something that they
one gear set that may be slightly updated from something that was.
So like, I don't want to like, here's my video on this job guide section, so it'd be easier. So cool. Well, that kind of like ends the few submitted questions that we have. Rua, Bob, anything else that you wanted to bring up while we've got Rooks on here to answer?
So, since I only know you from you being one of the admins and moderator time frame during AH, but what did you enjoy most of playing Final Fantasy XI? You know, what jobs, what content section, what expansion even? Like, what was your favorite parts over the last, 18 years of playing this game?
Well, let's see. I was mostly a paladin and a red mage. I was the first North American Excalibur on Hades. I think I was the first Excalibur, period.
Excalibur.
But I played a lot of paladin, a lot of red mage. I really played a lot of everything because I was sort of the fill-in for the various link shells I led. Whatever we needed on a given day was generally what I played. So I played a lot of white mage too. But I mostly just liked the big events, like getting 30 plus people and getting curb stomped in Dynamis Bastok.
Vertra? Did you do Vertra?
Didn't do a lot of the timed stuff because generally my link shell members were quite a bit more casual. So
you didn't like the 3 to 7 day window that you had to camp? What do you mean?
I did not. See, I had a job and I work from home now, so I could do that all day, but at the time I was commuting 90 minutes each way, so really I needed a little more structured. Yeah, I was living in Boston, which was a great place to spend my 20s, and I'm kind of glad I don't live there now. I still love it. I still have some great friends there, but it's super expensive and just
they'll go there.
But no, the thing I really liked, and this kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier about horizontal progression, is that you could kit yourself out even if there was an event that you hated and didn't want to do. Like, there were things that I missed out on by not doing Ground Kings, but I was still well equipped enough to do just about anything I would need to do. Because I like
absolutely
and Einherjar and whatever. And if you're a guy, you're like, I like Ground Kings, I like Dynamis, I like Sky, Limbus can suck a fat one. Okay, fine. You miss out on some things, but you're not crippled for it. Whereas in 14, if you don't want to raid, there's just a ceiling to how high you can go.
And it resets every 3 months.
It does.
Yeah, and if the only thing you're missing on a job, and in the Ground King's case is big fucking whoop, you don't have Radil. How many warriors back in 2002, 3, or 4 did you see without Radils that were still up there doing just fine?
I don't know. Riddle was pretty strong, man. Don't sell Riddle short.
You don't get me wrong. I promise you, occasionally attacks twice or thrice is awesome, no matter what weapon it sits on, unless it's the warrior's mythic weapon right now, in which just make a different fucking Rima. But
wait, Conqueror is bad now? What happened?
Yeah, warrior runs 100% double attack.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, those chances of triple attacks are cool, but everything else beats it.
Yeah, personally, I think the Empyrean Great Axe is really underrated. The Ukon Vazra. There's a warrior in my Dynamis shell that runs it, and he just cleans house. Especially whenever his Blood Rage buff goes up, he's critting for 10k or something, just wrecking things.
Well, I guess I got unless there's something else pops up, I got one more question. Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, Rooks. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I've always been curious.
I love the opening for this.
Yeah, I'm going to put this disclaimer out. You mentioned the politics forum earlier on. Do you just treat it as a spectator sport, or do you actually get interested in what's going on there?
Yeah, he doesn't actually moderate it. He just like, man, I really need to relax today. I'm gonna go watch these people at each other.
I've seen you occasionally drop into like when things are getting super heated. Like, okay, you're almost like the referee in a boxing match.
I am literally the referee. Like,
yeah, you are.
Here's the thing: I don't send the other moderators in there because I like the moderators. Here's the thing about the PNR section, and I will be very raw and real right now.
Yeah.
I view it as, well, let's go back a little bit. What's the banner at the top of AHC?
Final Fantasy Auction House, Final Fantasy database and community.
And community. And the thing is, my actual mandate as kind of the janitor, it's not necessarily to keep the site. It's not to like make changes to the site. It's not to do any particular thing. It's to keep the community around it going and healthy, and and some of that is done with code by fixing problems with the site and adding new features, and some of it is just kind of like just tending the garden. And the thing is, you can't have a real community if people can't talk about the things that are important to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's, in the chatterbox section, people talking about the anime they're watching, or, a celebrity who died, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Rest in peace.
Real life intrudes in an actual community. And the politics and religion section is there to give those, primal urges a contained little box. And I've done more and more to seal it off over time. Like, that stuff doesn't show up on the front page unless you flag it to where you see it. You have to have 100 posts to post in there. Like, you can't just make an account and go nuts.
That was a really good idea.
There's a whole separate section banning system to kick people out of there if they're like basically normal people outside of it, but they're Fruit Loops in it. Like, there's a way to just separate that part out. I've done everything I can do to keep that kind of walled off, so people who don't want to have to deal with politics, don't have to. But I think having it there is important, and I will continue to think that until the day I finally burn it down to its ashes and then piss on the ashes.
Yeah.
Hey, just let me know if you need somebody to help piss on the ashes. I'm pretty good at doing that. Just throwing it out there.
As far as I see it, and I think this kind of sums up the PNR forum completely. Honest disharmony is better than dishonest harmony.
That's kind of, yeah.
It's just I've hopped in there occasionally, but what kind of got me asking that question is I've seen occasionally like a moderator will wade in and just say, like, of course, being neutral and just try and just calm things down, but it kind of feels like you're trying to stop the wind. So I just see people just, and I've seen it spill over from the forum onto the actual server. I mean, Azura is like fucking Thunderdome on the best of days, but sometimes you'll just sometimes you'll just see like arguments which clearly started on the PNR forum just spill out into yell, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, shut the fuck up. That's where the whole Dalmel joke came from.
So when I wade in there, it's because I want it to stay to a dull roar. Like, there's a certain point where things will escalate to where people say things that they can't take back.
Yeah.
So my job, as I see it, is to go in there and every so often kind of, rattle the saber and, look over people's shoulder and be like, are you being good? And they'll be good for about 10 or 15 seconds. And
I know where your IP is.
I do know where their IP is. But I can't just stop them from, thinking their horrible position is, the right one. So yeah, it's very frustrating. Like, it's absolutely the worst part of this job. And I mean that Sincerely, it is the worst.
Sorry to bring it up then, man.
I hate it. I hate it.
I mean, this could be his one memory. Hey, remember that one of the podcasts?
You just need to have that
for a month
as your background image. You just need to have that meme. Do you want to get banned? Because this is how you get banned.
No, see, but I try not to be heavy-handed about it, because it's not fxi.gov, but I do believe in some real amount of free speech. But anyway, so
yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
So I loathe it, truly. It is the worst part of the job, and it is extremely demotivating. It's the reason that there was a big, like a 2-year stretch where I just got nothing done, because every time I would deal with the site, it was always PNR related, and I just wanted to hose everyone down in a bucket of clown piss. Like, just no.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, I'm sorry for bringing this up, man.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, he's on a roll now. He's like, actually 3 years ago, do you remember that post? Like, that's like, he's like, it's running through his mind right now.
Hey, man, did you want the polite answer or the real answer?
Real answer always.
No, I appreciate it. It's appreciated.
Real answer 100% of the time, my dude.
All right. Well, we're at 1 hour and 40 minutes, which it's flown by, which is good. I feel like it's been a good conversation. So, I really appreciate you coming on. I think, it's just like you said, at the top of your website, it's and community. And I think it's great that you took the time to kind of connect with the community in a little bit different way than normal. They kind of see you on the back end a little bit, taking care of things. So it's nice to have you, forward facing and answer some of those questions. So yeah, any last words that you want to leave us with, or?
Thank you for having me. I was happy to be here. Anyone who has questions, you can always PM me. There's, I think there's still an Ask the Admin AMA type thread that's in Chatterbox. I think it's in Chatterbox.
Okay.
But you can always find me with questions. I'm on Discord. I'm obviously on the site. There's threads. Ask questions. I don't mind answering them, except if it's about the politics and religion.
Yeah, I was going to say, except in one section where he'll just...
For that one, I collect your fucking head. But otherwise, open season.
Perfect way to end. All right, well, I appreciate you being here, and we will wrap up there. So appreciate everyone listening. And if you're on YouTube, make sure, like I say, go ahead and subscribe so you keep caught up with these. If you're on Apple or Spotify, leave us a rating and review, and be on the lookout for Rua's Beastmaster guide coming up too. So we'll leave you with that. All right. Well, we will see you all on the next one. Appreciate it.
Peace out all.